Welcome to the June 13th, 2022 Tualatin City Council meeting. We'll start off tonight with our traditional method of doing the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, led by Councilor Reyes. Oh, we'll wait for Councilor Reyes to come. If not, I'll sub.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you. You echo a little bit, but we can hear you.
Oh, I got to turn off my phone. I fixed it. Wait, oh. Oh, never mind.
I'm sorry, I'm here. I was also on the same thing that I was trying to get the.
Oh,
Can you hear me? Trying to get my
fine.
audio. Yeah. Yes.
All right. So you're up for Pledge of Allegiance. Floor is yours.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Reyes. That brings us to our public health under announcements. Last week, an FDA advisory committee voted unanimously recommend Novavax COVID-19 vaccine. The shot may be cleared this week for emergency disbursement. It's unlike the previous vaccines that Moderna, Pfizer, and J&J had, that this is a more traditional, if you will, vaccination based on protein-based vaccination methods. And we've got a long history doing that with the flu vaccination, hepatitis B, and shingles. So I'm going to ask folks who haven't gotten vaccinated yet, because they were kind of reluctant to get that vaccination using new technology, to relook at this and talk to their doctors about when Novavax is generally available, to maybe now go ahead and get that vaccine, because this is, I've said, more traditional and what some people have been waiting for. So I'm very excited to hear that. So that brings us to our first proclamation. So I have a proclamation declaring June 20th through 26th, 2022 as National Pollinator Week in the city of Tualatin. This be read by Councilor Brooks.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Can I go second? I forgot to look for it. I don't know why I'm out of practice today, but I will. Right. Thank you.
No problem at all. I see a lot of we're Orange folks are here, so they're probably more eager to hear theirs first anyway. See Terry Mills there. So the next item, we'll flip it around here, is a proclamation declaring June 2022 as Gun Violence Awareness Month in the city of Tualatin, and that'll be led by Councilor Hillier.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all the representatives here doing incredible work locally, regionally, and I know across the nation as well as you partner with different groups. So proclamation declaring June 2022 to be Gun Violence Awareness Month in the city of Tualatin. Whereas every day more than 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, alongside more than 230 who are shot and wounded. And on average, there are more than 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas, excuse me, Oregon has an average of 522 gun deaths every year with a rate of 11.9 deaths per 100,000 people, the 33rd highest rate of gun deaths in the U.S. And whereas cities across the nation are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions, and whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories, and whereas gun violence prevention is more than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to exacerbate gun violence, after more than a year of increased gun sales, increased calls to suicides and domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in gun violence. And whereas in January 2013, Hydalia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15. And in June, recognized Hydalia Pendleton's birthday, born June 2, 1997. People across the United States recognize gun violence awareness and wear orange in tribute to Hydalia and other gun victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of her friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas by wearing orange in June, Tualatin will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City of Council of the City of Tualatin, Oregon, that June 2022 is Gun Violence Awareness Month in the City of Tualatin. The community is encouraged to support efforts to prevent the tragic acts of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Introduced and adopted this 13th day of June 2022.
Thank you, Councilor Hillier. Terry, would you like to take a moment or two to say hello and bring us up to speed?
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. As you know, we've suffered a lot of mass shootings, not to mention individuals who take their lives every day because of firearm. So we're really, really appreciative. Tualatin actually is joining Lake Oswego and West Lynn in proclaiming June to the month to wear orange to raise awareness for gun violence. So we're really appreciative of our mayor and all of you at the Tualatin City Council. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing and raising awareness of what's going on with a lot of folks don't think about suicide, rate in addition to people getting shot, on the streets. And as after this last shooting in Texas, now the number one killer of children is guns and gun violence. That's just, car accidents aren't it anymore. It's violence, which is shocking. So, thank you for coming tonight and bringing this to attention, and every year bringing this to people's attention, Mary. All right. So now we'll go back to Councilor Brooks with a proclamation declaring June 20th through 26th of 2022 as National Pollinator Week in the City of Tualatin.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to also thank all the people from Moms for coming out tonight and all the efforts that are being done for the petition as well that's brought up by the faith-based community. And, as we came together with Blender Dash and our kids running around and having so much fun, just a minute and thinking of these kids that we've lost, horrific shooting. And I know a lot of people have stepped up and want to do this, and the moms, women here have caught them and are guiding them into action and go beyond just thoughts and prayers. So thank you so much, ladies, for all you've done. Okay, shifting gears. My proclamations for pollinators. So this proclamation is declaring June 20th through 26th, 2022 as National Pollinator Week in the City of Tualatin. Whereas pollinators, just thousands of species of bees, are essential partners in producing much of our food supply, and whereas pollinators provide significant environmental benefits that are necessary for maintaining healthy, diverse ecosystems in towns and cities, and whereas pollination plays a vital role in the trees and plants of our community, enhancing our quality of life and creating recreational and economic development opportunities. Whereas the City of Tualatin manages parks, public landscape, and other public lands that includes greenways, natural areas, and wildlife habitats. And whereas the City of Tualatin provides recommendations to developers and residents regarding landscaping to promote wise conservation stewardship, along with the protection of pollinators and maintenance of their habitats, now therefore be it proclaimed by the City of Council of the City of Tualatin, Oregon, that the City of Tualatin designates June 20th through 26th, 2022 as National Pollinator Week in the City of Tualatin. We all urge we are all are urged to recognize this observance and support efforts to protect and plant pollinators. The City of Tualatin supports Bee City USA certified affiliate status in their recognition of the value of pollinators by proclaiming June 20th through 26th, 2022 as National Pollinator Week in Tualatin, introduced and adopted this 13th day of June 2022.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Councilor
you.
Brooks. Okay, that brings us to item number 4, introduction of Interim Police Chief Greg Pickering, a very familiar face to all of us here in town. Sherilyn will lead the introduction, but most of us already know Greg, but not in his new role.
Yeah, and I ask Chief Pickering to, if you would raise your electronic hand so that that it'll pop you to the top of the screen. That would be awesome, so that I can identify you. There you go. So it's my pleasure to introduce Interim Police Chief Greg Pickering. So I started here on December 18th, 2006, some 15 years ago. The Friday prior was the city's annual holiday party, which that year was held at the Wilsonville Holiday Inn. It was a formal affair, fancy clothes and a plated dinner. And I distinctly remember meeting Greg at that dinner before I started at the city. We talked about the fact that he was on the board of the Tualatin Police Officers Association and that he had started at a young age here in Tualatin as an explorer. He then worked for the Tigard Police Department for 7 years, but then came back in 2005 to what he called home. He made an impression on me that night. I knew then that Greg was a leader, and then I have come to find out that he is also confident and strong in his knowledge, skills, and abilities, and he is a solid and competent law enforcement professional in a time when that is increasingly challenging. We are at a transition point in the police department with the retirement of Chief Steele, and I have asked Greg to step up and into the role of chief while we conduct a thorough recruitment. Being the confident professional leader that he is, Greg accepted the challenge and has jumped in with both feet. When I met with him several weeks ago to talk about the transition, I laid out my expectations for him. And one of the first was that I wanted to see his goals, thinking that he would make a note of it and get back with me. But no, right there on the spot, he flipped open his laptop and proceeded in great detail to talk about his vision and goals for the coming months. But I caution that Greg can't be successful on his own. As much of a leader and confident professional that he is, he will need a whole host of people to support him and help him be successful. Greg's success is tied to all of our success, because if Greg fails, we fail. Today, Greg was sworn in at the police department by Captain Struckmeyer. I had the opportunity to say a few words. I asked those gathered there who had been to a wedding. Of course, most people raised their hands. We talked about the vows that the bride and groom recite, sort of similar to the oath that Greg recited. I told the group that my nephew recently got married, and as a part of his ceremony, the minister turned to the attendees and asked us to take a vow that we would do everything in our power to uphold and support the bride and groom, in sickness and in health, through richer and poorer, for better or for worse. We were excited to respond with vigor. We will. It struck me that the swearing in was very similar. Greg has made a public commitment to serve as the interim police chief, through good times and bad, through sickness and health, for better and for worse. I turned to those in attendance, the department that he is entrusted to lead, and I reminded them that it will not always be puppies and unicorns, that Greg will have to make decisions that they don't always, that they may not always understand. But I asked to look Chief Pickering in the eye and affirm that they will, to the best of their ability, support him. I asked them to commit to being their best, and by doing so, help Chief Pickering be the best that he can be. The attendees demonstrated that commitment by saying with much vigor, "We will." I know that you are supportive of Chief Pickering as well, and that you demonstrate your commitment, and I do as well, by supporting Chief Pickering, and I'm thrilled to introduce him to you, the council, and the community.
I just have one question, Sherilyn. So Chief Pickering was actually a formal event in a normal suit?
He was. Well, I don't know if he was in a suit, but he was in something fancy.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen that in quite a while. He's renowned for his outfits at the banquets, aren't you, Kat? I gotta get used to this, Chief Pickering.
I'm sure I had a bow tie on, but
Well,
probably
floor
went
is
flamingo
yours
suit.
now. I'm turning it over to you, Chief Pickering, to welcome yourself and say whatever you want to say right now. Go for it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just super excited to get started and continue the legacy that has been set by Chief Weininger, Chief Barker, and Chief Steele. And hopefully I can continue in their footsteps and continue to lead the men and women of the Tualatin Police Department and take care of the community that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Pickering. I look forward to working with you. We've known each other for years. I went through Citizens Academy with you. So I know you are very devoted to this community. You've been coaching football forever. You know a lot of people in this community. National Night Out, you're there. Any kind of event, you're there. So I look forward to working with you. I think you'll be very successful. I'll stop there and let anyone else want to welcome Chief Pickering. I don't know why I'm having trouble. It's a transition, I guess. Councilor Brooks.
I just also want to say welcome aboard, Chief. Pickering is a little bit longer than the last person, so I'm going to have to get used to that as well. And but I know it's going to be great, and you're no stranger to our city, and I'm also looking forward to working with you on the Police Foundation. Thank you so much for stepping up.
Thank you.
Councilor Pratt.
You hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yay. It's so great to have someone. You've been in our community so long, so you know the values, the police forces, and the positive responses we get from our community. And also on the Police Foundation, that is one place I hope we can talk about peace. So.
All right. Council President Grimes and then Councilor Reyes.
Thank you. I've known Sergeant, now Interim Chief Pickering, ever since I started ever so many years ago. Actually, I think you were one of the first people that I met, you and Chief Barker, at a crawfish festival event. But I knew you to be a man of great heart, great integrity, and great wisdom. So I look forward to working with you in this capacity. I'm very proud of you. And thank you very much for stepping up and stepping into the role. And I think you're going to do a fantastic job. So thank you so much for supporting our community. Ever since you were a guide, is that?
Police Explorer, yeah.
Explorer, yes.
Yep.
Ever since you're just a tadpole explorer.
Correct.
So now you've grown into like Chinook, salmon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Reyes.
Pickering, welcome, and looking forward to seeing you around the community. And I mean, you've been around in our community for a long time, so that's actually a good thing. And I'm glad that you're with us. One of the things I admire about our city is that the unity and how we all kind of help each other out. So I'm glad that you were selected, and I wanted someone that knew our community and was familiar with our community. So well done, Sherlyn. So welcome, and look forward to getting to know you a little bit better.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Hillier.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome and congratulations, Chief. That's very exciting. And I just want to refer to the words that Sherlyn said. We are, you continue to be a reflection of us and the entire community. And so if there are needs, we hope that we will be that open door. And whether it's a meeting one-on-one or, whatever it is, bring to council, we are very invested in your success for the benefit of our community. And I know you feel that same way because you represent so many different parts of our community, and we appreciate that also, to be seen in a different light. And we just appreciate that about your investment in different ways in our community. So thank you, congratulations, and welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, now you've knocked out your first, well, your beginning of your first city council meeting as chief. Stick around because you never know if we might have questions for you.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, welcome. All right, that brings us to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for you to address the city council tonight on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Please keep your comment about 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the Zoom meeting who has a public comment?
Mayor Susan Nowick has reached out to have public comment.
All right, Susan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me on for public comment. As you saw in the work session presentation from Ross, I was on the Parks Committee, and I just wanted to give a perspective because I will readily admit Ross and I have been talking since probably February, March. He presented these plans to me, and I was a naysayer for quite a while. For a lot of I wear a couple hats, and both my hats, my chamber business hat and my Aging Task Force senior hat. I was real concerned about a new bond for both sides of the community. I went into this committee. Might be a cliche, but I was wearing a hard hat, I will tell you, and I had my back up a little bit. I ended my time on that committee wearing a headband or a bow in my hair because I learned a lot. It was a great committee, as everyone said prior in the work session. I met people I never met before, found out about a lot of things that go on in our community that I didn't know about, and I thought I knew a lot, and saw some avenues that hopefully this will go through. I was all in favor of the $25 million bond, nothing less, because if you're going to go for it, go for it. My concerns were mostly the timing of on, as we all have talked about. I was worried about the extra impact on our seniors, many of who in our community who are limited incomes, and our business community not having access to some of our public properties because of where they're located or the timing of their employees' schedules kind of thing. But I wasn't as aware of the impact of sports in our community. My children are adults, almost middle-aged adults. So I went through the sports community a long time ago. So there were so many things that I learned about that were extremely positive, and I appreciated that. And I'm ready to take this to Ross made a presentation to the Aging Task Force, which was well received, and we're working on a scheduling plan to take it to the Chamber of Commerce Business Advocacy Committee and our board, because that's where the votes come to support any ballot measure or bond measure. And I can walk into all of those meetings now with a better perspective on what's best for our community and can help support and prove to the chamber business community and the Aging Task Force community that it's the right thing to do. And I appreciate that. And I just wanted you all to hear just a little different perspective on this. It was well done. I did comment that when we, 5 years ago, when we worked on the Moving Forward bond, I was involved in that a bit too. It was extremely successful, and part of that reasoning was because the marketing and messaging was so well done. And I'm going to continue to push that same effort and outreach is again this time for this one, because it's the messaging in the community that's going to make the difference. It passes or fails, and that's something that changes pretty well. And if I get board support and BA support, I will, as board chair, I can say that I will make sure that we support the bond and do our best to help you with the messaging any way we can. So thank you to Ross and his committee, everyone on the committee. It was a pleasure. I've served on several committees with the city, and this one was special for me. Just the people that I met. I'm even talking to Trevor about when it is passed and the fields are up and running, that we work together with the chamber to support bringing the tournaments here. It's a great tourism economic aspect for the city and the community. And from that stands, the chamber can help work on that too. So a lot of partnerships available for all of us to work together. And just remember when you're voting and you start work on this, that in the next several months, the chamber's ready to stand behind you, and our aging task force will too, because part of what this new bond will do is offer more mobility, access, and accessibility for seniors and people with disabilities to enjoy our parks and get to them with the paths and trails. So it's a win-win. And I just thank everybody and let you all as a council know what some people in the community are thinking about. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comment tonight? All right, seeing none, that brings us on to.
I have a question. I got an email that Spencer was going to.
Going to
Provide public comment. You're on mute somehow. Your vocal's not coming through, Spencer.
the joys of Zoom.
Is Atlas, are you with Spencer, Atlas? Can you,
Can't hear you, Spencer.
I can can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I can deliver it if there's volume isn't working.
Okay, welcome.
I do have to access it first because I wasn't prepared to have to actually give the speech, but and I can just start whenever.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Atlas, and I'm here representing the Tualatin High School Gender Sexuality Alliance. The mission of the GSA is an affinity group for LGBTQ plus students at Tualatin High School. The goal is to educate about issues impacting LGBTQ plus youth and create a safe community for our members. As is commonly known, June is the National Pride Month. Pride Month began in June of 1969 on the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City, after LGBTQ plus and allied friends rose up and brought the consistent police harassment and discriminatory laws that have been declared unconstitutional. Even still, LGBTQ plus youth around the country continue to face high depression, homelessness, and targeted violence. This evening at the Tigard Tualatin School Board meeting, board members will be adopting a resolution to commemorate Pride Month. We have shared the recommended resolution with you. I am joined tonight by other GSA members, Spencer Navarro and Jasmine Benitez Diaz, as well as our supervisor, Chica Fontaine. And we request that the City of Tualatin consider adopting a Pride Month proclamation similar to the resolution we have shared to demonstrate your support to the community. The City of Tualatin continues to be a strong supporter of our schools and our students. This is another way to share the community, your support and respect for all community members, including LGBTQ youth. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. You did great.
Well done. Well done.
Yep, right. So we'll do, I'll just add that to council communications at the end to take the vote on moving the proclamation forward. I don't envision it being held up in any way if you don't want to wait till the end of the city council meeting. But we'll circle back with you and let you know about the proclamation, because if it's approved tonight, council will be read at our next city council meeting in 2 weeks. All right. So if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome. But if you want, we'll get back in touch with you tomorrow after the meeting ends. How's that sound? All right. All right. Anyone else have public comment? Councilor Brooks.
I just want to thank the students for coming tonight and for crafting something for their school. I think it takes a lot of courage and conviction to come to something like this. And before we're talking about it, just in case you guys can't stay, I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for coming, and hope that you stay, and hope that we see you also when we read the proclamation if it passes. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Anything else on public comment? Assuming no one's at the poll center, Bates?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So they'll then move on to consent agenda. Consent agenda, these are items that are considered routine, will be adopted by one motion unless someone in council would like them removed and heard separately later tonight. That's consent agenda consists of 3 items. Item number 1, consideration for approval of the work session and regular meeting minutes of May 23rd, 2022. Item 2, consideration of resolution number 5631-22, authorizing the city manager to adopt section 116 of the 2019 Oregon Structural Stability Code. And finally, item number 3, consideration of resolution number 563-22, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Tualatin and the city of Durham for building inspection and planning review services. Would any councilor like to have an item removed and heard separately later tonight?
I'll make a
motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
I have motion and second to adopt the consent agenda as read. Any discussion on the motions? All right, Councilor Hillier.
Aye.
Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Councilor Stocco.
Aye.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Aye.
Councilor President Grimes.
Aye.
And I vote aye also. They are adopted. That brings us up to special reports, and tonight's update is on Tualatin moving forward, quarterly update with Mike McCarthy. Welcome, Mr. McCarthy.
Well, good evening. So I'm Mike McCarthy. I work for the city as a transportation engineer, and I'm going to be sharing my screen on our Tualatin moving forward quarterly update. And I'll try to keep it brief. I know you have a lot on your agenda tonight. And there you go. So we're up to our full screen. So got a couple pages here. So this is our Tualatin moving forward quarter update for June 13th. And, you know, as you know, and before, we try to provide updates each quarter of what we've been doing with the Tualatin moving forward program and the bond money involved. And tonight we're focusing on the projects coming up for construction this summer and completed this spring, and what we're looking forward to. Also, just we'll sneak peek, we're going to have a bus tour in a couple of months to be able to actually see some of these projects. So here's our updated map. We now have 22 projects built. 12 more are still underway. Recently completed 50 Wilkie, some improvements there to help keep vehicles on the road and help make it a little easier to cross. And then Tualatin Road from the community park over to Sweet Drive and in front of our new Chief Pickering station there. And so that included some widened sidewalk, a couple better crossing of the road, better crossing of the railroad, and some other improvements. And We're just starting construction week on a project over at 95th and Avery near Tualatin Elementary School in that whole area. Some of that's done already. This is a crosswalk that we installed last fall across the street at 93rd, where we found that a lot of the students walking to and from school were coming from this direction. And this was one of the first things we did to help them get across Sagert. And then we also converted the intersection of 95th and Sagert to an all-way stop. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that, and we think it really helps make it safe. And then as part of our paving program, we actually striped some buffered bike lane in Avery between 95th and Boone's Ferry. And this is an overall overview of the project. So Tualatin Elementary is right here, and a lot of it's around the rectangle of 95th, Sagert, and 93rd. So probably the biggest change that people will notice is we're fit in a center left turn lane on Avery Street. So if you turn on the 95th and into the school, you'd actually have your own lane to turn in there, and that'll help our traffic flow quite a bit better, I think, especially in the morning rush hour. And we've got enough space between the curbs to do that. We will have to turn radius right here on the northwest corner to make buses can still get around the corner and stay on the road. We're also planning on making some changes to the signal. If you're headed south on 95th right now, you just get a red, yellow, or green light. And even if someone's in the cross, you get a green light. And we don't want that. So we'll be changing that so it'll have arrowheads. So it will be an arrow to turn left and an arrow to turn right. And the right turn arrow would then stay red when the crosswalk sign is on, so that we can have the kids cross a little safer that way. We'll be consolidating the speed zones on 95th. Right now, there's a school speed right in front of the school and another one at the Sagert intersection. And then in between, there's a stretch of 35-mile-an-hour road. And we'll be taking that 35-mile-an-hour stretch out at one school speed 20 all the way through to past the Sagert intersection. We'll be shortening up this end of it. And then reading 95th, keeping the northbound bike lane, agging a southbound bike lane, allowing parking along the school fields, except for during school arrival and dismissal times. And then also building in some sidewalk along the north side of Avery Street connecting to the school, and a couple speed bumps on 93rd. And then at the north end of 93rd, we're planning to finish the sidewalks there along both sides of 93rd, and including a stormwater treatment planter that's been in our range stormwater plan right along the east side of 93rd there. Another project coming up.
Might go back to that. I just want to point out that we're looking at Hudson Heights apartments that you made the big decision about, and so this will address some of the parking issues that were brought up when you talked about that project.
Thank you. Another project going out to bid this summer for work in the summer and fall, crosswalk on 65th Avenue across from Meridian Park Hospital, connecting over to some big apartment complexes on the west side there. And then a big project coming along Boone's Ferry Road. And this one's scheduled to go out to bid in a couple weeks. And hopefully, if we get good bids, we'll be able to, the contract award will be on your agenda the same night as our bus tour in August. And this is the whole section of Boone's Ferry from South to IBAC, and redoing a lot of those asphalt walkways that have a lot of bumps from the tree roots on them, and fixing a lot of issues with ramps and a couple crossing issues, adding flashing light crosswalk at Apache, and fixing up a number of other areas where some paths are just buckled up and they're past their useful life. It is planned to include some lighting along the path between Avery and Siletz as well in there. So that'll be a pretty big project coming. And we're also working on design of our neighborhood traffic safety program, and 6 projects with that. Those will also be going out to bid in the summer for work in the fall, including sidewalk in the Union Gap along the kind of southwest side of Avery, 12th and Sherwood, and flashing lights at the crosswalk across Martin Nazzi and Muck. Some improvements on the bridge across Sagert Street across I-5 to help you walk across that easier. So on Martin Nazzi by Fred Meyer, flashing lights, crosswalk by the Blue Lot and the Nurses Association building on Boone's Ferry on north side of downtown. And then we're working on doing what we can to help, particularly help walking and make it a little safer in the Stone Ridge neighborhood there. We're also working on the Hazel Area project. And this one, flashing lights at the existing crosswalks on Tualatin Road that don't have a new crosswalk at 115th up towards Hazelbrook Middle School. And then some restriping along Hazelbrook Road and Jurgens Avenue. In both cases, make it more fitting of the neighborhood setting that they're in. Some narrower travel lanes, allowing parking along the west side of Jurgens and bike lane sides of Jurgens. And fixing up the corner of Jurgens and Hazelbrook right near the park to make that a little better. And then adding a new crosswalk, but without flashing lights, and help to get across on Jurgens near Wasco, Kiowa. And this is some more just description of what we're doing as part of that project. And then you get a chance to see it for yourself in a couple months. So with that, I think I'll stop sharing and open up for any questions or comments.
Questions for Mike? Councilor Pratt.
Hey, Mike, I want to thank you always for your updates because they're very understandable. But I'm just because I haven't looked at it lately is when do you expect to have that extra lane on 12th and Sherwood to the freeway completed?
That one we're working on for next summer.
Okay.
Currently in the
that one gets asked about a lot. Great. And then I'm wondering, have all the projects been identified or are there still funds left for their projects?
They've all been identified.
Okay,
we have identified.
Okay. Then my question is on a particular road. I have all these little 3-4 mile loops that I do from my neighborhood. And the one street that I think is still really, it's one of our only unpaved sidewalk streets is Killarney. And especially that part where you go up the hill and around towards Mortop, that's before the sidewalk starts, that's really pretty dangerous. And I'm wondering if that had been identified.
We had some requests there, and unfortunately, we haven't had the funding to be able to build all the projects that we want to build. I think that would be a really good street to get sidewalks, but I think it would take quite a bit to get those accomplished.
Okay, and is there? I guess my other question would be: is there, other than that hill part, the rest of the road coming down to Boone's Ferry is kind of wide? Is there a way to put some kind of way to deal with that so you'd have separation for pedestrians?
I think that's something we can look at as a potential future project.
Okay.
The Boone's Ferry project will be including what we call curb extensions at the Killarney intersection. So the curbs will be coming in to make it only about 24 feet wide getting through, which is plenty for two-way traffic, but wouldn't allow parking on either side. But we figure by narrowing just the entrance to Killarney, we figure that might help at least make it a little more of you're entering a residential neighborhood as you enter.
Okay. It's kind of interesting that it stands out when we have a street that doesn't have a sidewalk. So
that's a good thing.
Other questions for Mike? Council President Grimes.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just love to see all the good work that gets done all the time on these bond projects. It's just fantastic. I have a question about some of the roadways where you're adding bike lane. Because I know at one time you guys had shown us this really cool concept where you'd have the traffic moving, and next to the traffic would be the parked cars, and then next to the sidewalk would be the bike lane. The idea that the parked cars would be like a safety buffer for the bikes that would be next to the sidewalk. Will that be a feature on any of the road you showed us tonight, or was it going to be more of the traditional traffic bike and parked vehicle?
As we were looking at those, we didn't really see one that was a good candidate for that kind of a treatment. Jurgens is the one that we're looking at, where we're planning to build both a bike lane and the parking strip. And in that case, the parking doesn't get used that much. So the kind of the travel parking bike lane tends to work best when there's a lot of parking. And we didn't think we'd have the level of parking on Jurgens to really kind of have cars to provide the buffer. And so it's one that I think is a good idea in the right place. I don't think we just had that with the ones that we're looking at.
And would it be, do you think it could be possible over by 12th Elementary along that, is it 93rd, the long straight stretch where you've done so much work on that? That be a possible candidate since we're opening up more parking next to Sport Field? Because I'm just thinking if there's any place you would want to protect a bike lane, I mean, you want all bikers to be protected, but when I think about that, where it could be like little kids biking to school, could that be a place that it could work or not?
Yeah, and that on 95th, looking at that one, we have an extra wide sidewalk there. So the sidewalk is twice as wide as normal. And we figured that was gonna be the place where kids would be riding to school. If they were already separated by a curb and the street trees.
Okay. You shared that concept with us a while ago, and I thought it was such a worthy idea.
Sure, yeah.
You know.
Any other questions for Mike? All right, continue on, Mike. Project's being well run, well maintained, managed. So keep on chugging away and knock out a bunch of projects over the summer and the fall.
Well, thank you very much, and we're blessed to have a really good team working on this. So thank you all and have a great evening.
You too. All right, that brings us to public hearings. We have two legislative public hearings. So the first one is consideration of resolution number 5622-22, adopting findings in support of an exemption from competitive bidding and authorizing the city manager to execute a design build contract for the 12th City Service Building parking lot expansion and repair, enter into an agreement with PGE for the Fleet Partner Program. I'm going to go ahead and open this hearing. And first thing up is a staff update, staff review of the project. And I think is this Clay?
It is.
Hey, Clay.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Pleasure to see you tonight. I'll hit the share screen here so if I can get this up. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, for the record, my name is Clay Reynolds, Maintenance Services Manager with you. It's a great pleasure. I'm here tonight wrapping up the city service project. And also, as promised, I wanted to bring back and talk about the site master plan as I walk through the logic behind next steps. It'll take you through and tell the story and why there wasn't an upcoming project. I gotta learn how to work the equipment here. All right, I want to take a step back for just a second and talk about why the city services project. Remember, the council building went down for the road construction. We moved over to a house, the Lafke House in the park. Court, we moved in and crowded into the station. Admin services, we were leasing space in the Senate building. In the meantime, out at operations, our master plan, we were trying to expand our site for all the room that we had out there. It just made sense that we take a look at our like services, bring those out to operations, allowing space in city off for everybody to move back. We paid for that out of the 50% of that was planned savings for the master plan. The other 50% low interest loan Tom was able to secure. We were substantial completion was in March 2021 and under budget. With that said, we just now are finishing up the last components of the project, i.e. solar, and as well as the generator switchgear that took almost 2 years to get. Because it was a design bid exemption, we're required to come back and report on how that worked. City services, we hired for the construction, we hired construction. We had Scott Edwards. For the architects, we hired a owner's rep, Plan B, just to help us get the projects going and move through those. I have to say, for the value, we made it real clear early on, get everybody pulled together from Northwest Geotech, even to the subcontractors onto the construction, putting it together. Most of the savings were in the seismic upgrades, but I would say we saved about $500,000 in the project by doing it this way versus the design bid. I would definitely recommend doing this again if we have the same type of project. The second bid exemption we had the project, which we had gotten Elementor Energy to do for an RFP selection. Talk more about that in just a second. Still learn how to work the equipment still. So let's talk about solar project. What we chose to do, this is the building, the Fleet building, next to the building we just built. If you remember right, about a little over 13 years ago, we put a solar array up on the building. What we chose to do is add another 2/3 more of an arrays onto it. We updated existing. By the way, return on investment was 13 years. We just passed that. So we paid that first solar. And the next question is why the solar project when we're building the other building? The reasoning behind that is 1.5% of any public project is to be spent on green energy. Plan B with the Energy Trust came up with the number that we come to was 93,000. And that's the reason why we asked for the bid exemption for the Elementor Energy to do the work. We knew how much money we needed to spend. Therefore, it made sense to go out and research the best project, the best company to come and do that. I think they did a good job. It was a challenge managing the old with the new. They did a good job making that work. Our current solar array now should last about 25, 30 years easily, if not longer. It increased the output to about 32,300 kilowatt hours per year. And I know you're going to ask me, well, how much does that equate in dollars? Part of that depends on how much sun we get. The other part of that depends on what our current rates are. As of the dollars today, we estimate it's going to save about $2,500 a year. Now I'd like to talk about the master plan. I'm going to move through this fairly quickly, and we'll have some questions at the end. The site plan, you asked us to come back and update you. We asked us to review it, update it, bring it back. One of the questions was, do we really need all the site's property? The other thing, two top priorities that we really focus on as well is the fuel tanks. As you know, most of you know that the insurance, we can't get insurance on the tanks anymore, even though we retrofitted those about 10 years ago. We're going to need to do something in the near future. Therefore, we're looking to find the location, and if we're going to do the tanks today, what would it cost? I'll talk through that as well. The second issue we had is parking. We'll work through that. And another problem we have is a stormwater repair that we need to do, and I'll explain that. The other key components that are way in the future, I'm just going to brush over those because we're going to come back and talk to those as they come up in order to just expedite the process. With that said, and we'll do a little bit of orientation here to the site. This is the site map out there at operations, or now the Tualatin Services site. I should get used to saying. Too many years of saying operations. So the lower left black L there was the existing building. The light gray was the new that we added on to it. Those of you who've been in it, I think you agree, melding between the two, it seems pretty seamless. Following the ladder up to the center there, that's the fleet building. That's where the solar fleet and warehouse, that's where the solar panels are. Going up to the far right-hand corner up here, the little white area up here, that's where the cell towers are. Cell towers, we get about $2,700 a month off of those for the lease. The little polka dot pieces here were part of that's nursery, future expansion. And the little lines over here, that's the area where they figure we're going to storm detention ponds. So the first question we did is looked at, do we really need all the property? What we did is create these boxes. You can see all the components, these key components to it for a future master plan. And we moved them all over the site. Makes sense. So we put it here, should fuel be over there, should fuel be on the east side of the fleet building? Where should everything go? And there's a way we can put it in to where we don't need that upper corner property up there. It's about an acre that's right there on top. Short answer is I don't recommend, and Scott Edwards didn't recommend, we should keep that property. We should not sell it. At some point in time in the future, we're going to need it. Now I'm going to turn around and bring the focus back to the fuel. What we did is went to the expense and the time of doing a pre-bid set for the fuel system so we could come up with how it's going to cost to do that. That came out to about $1.3 million, which is more money than we have today. And I recommended we shelve that project for now. We self-insure our fuel tanks, and we go out and we look, and one, how much fuel are we really going to need in the future here if we're going to do the EVs. Also, we're still going to be a prime provider if we have an emergency to other vendors. And if that's the case, maybe, just maybe, we can find other funding sources besides using just our money. So recommend we continue to look at that. So in the next couple of years, you'll see us come back and talk about fuel tanks. The other issue we have is parking. Where would the parking go? We'll move the parking over to that far west side. And that little red X there is the problem child. I wanted to talk about the storm drain, storm detention there, the dry wells. We knew we had an issue when we were doing the building project. We opened up the existing dry wells, moved them out, vacuumed a lot of stuff out of that. We figured we had that problem solved. With all the rains this winter, we definitely did not. With that in mind, though, if we're going to go and repair those, we want to take into account the future parking expansion. We want to take account the future impervious surface that's going to go up here, and make sure if we fix it, we do it right, and we only do it once. As we were working through the master plan, all of a sudden, PGE comes along, says, hey, we'll give you between $70 and $80 for infrastructure if you pay for charging stations put on your. PGE also, I want to point out, had already chosen the contractor for the design and build process. The contractor happens to be Bremit Construction, the same company their build. That's going to be important. I'll touch on that in the next phase here. But the deal is the city will pay the $50,000 depending on how many chargers we put in. I'm proposing we put in 2 chargers, which will charge 4 vehicles. At first, one, we don't have that many cars. The other part of that, due to the lifespan of the chargers are only 10 to 12 years, it makes sense to put in 2 to begin with, wait a year, put the next one in, wait a year and put the next one in. Way we don't run into spending all of the capital costs all at once. It spreads those costs over time. And next, I wanted to show this again. You recognize the fuel and expanded parking lot. Meeting with PGE, their service, the best service, we need to have a separate service for it. The line coming across right there, they'll bore underneath the 108th. We'll put the EV chargers there. And we'll expand that parking lot as part of that same project. It just makes sense to do all that all together. So my proposal is combine all the parking expansion. We do the EV charging, we fix the stormwater repair. The estimated budget is about $400,000. We're still working through those to verify that. But we have enough savings for the constructions that we did. We have savings in the 12 city services project. The city offices renovation, we have quite a bit of savings because we were the general on that with COVID. That was a benefit with everybody out of the offices for the most part, allowed us to do that over time, saving quite a bit of dollars. The library makerspace came in under budget. Also, the Library Foundation donated $100,000. I want to make sure I pointed that out. So we have substantial funds in there to move the project forward. And therefore, that's why I'm recommending that we adopt the resolution. We authorize the city manager to execute a design contract with Bremen Construction. Economy is a scope that we, between those two, rather than having two different contractors, or one for PG, one else, it makes sense to marry those two. Plus, they're an approved contract company. Those reasons, all of those reasons below that you can read there on the slide. And with that, I'll stop sharing and then I'll open it up for any questions.
Questions for Clay? Council Brooks.
Thank you for all your work on the services building. It was so great to go over there and get a tour and understand all the details that went into that. So thank you so much for that. When I had two questions. One, with the drain repair, what exactly is happening there? Like,
what is that?
Yeah.
So what there is on the site that operations out there, or city services, I still got to get used to saying that, is that there isn't any storm that leaves the site. So we have dry wells, catch basins that go to dry wells, and that's how we disperse the water underground. Two things I think happened with that is with the design, I don't think they were quite big enough initially. They were plugged up with pine needles for years with that big tree that's there. So we thought when we vacuumed those out and cleaned all the rock out, pressure washed that all out, we thought that that would take care of the problem. Now with the monsoon rain they had this time, with the people, with all of us that park there, if it rains at certain times, there's about 8-10 inches of water there. It stays there for a couple of hours before it drains down. So we definitely need to go fix that if we're going to use that as a parking area. And we need to fix it right. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I don't know how. Do you know how you're fixing it? I guess.
Yeah, what we're going to do to fix it is, I believe in our drawings, it shows that there's supposed to be 6 dry wells there. There's really only 3. We're going to add the 3 that are supposed to, and we're going to do the engineering design work to make sure that we don't have to add another one to make sure that we have it covered.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, that was. And then I was just trying to picture it. I appreciate that. And then I guess my other question is, I like the idea of stagnating the EV chargers for a couple of reasons. And I'm curious, I just also think with technology continually improving, and I'm curious for the first iteration, are they going to be the high speed chargers?
What they are is that we didn't get those powerful chargers, but we are getting the 50 amp chargers, so they're pretty high quality. I think that'll cover the future because I think that's going to be more the demand. Therefore, the service, instead of being a 300 amp service, it's going to be a 600 amp service that's coming across from PGE to allow for their rate chargers going forward. There's also a contract with City of Portland that we're going to piggyback on to purchase chargers, which should save us some dollars as well.
And then do you anticipate those 4 being just the future utility vehicles, or will there be enough charging for Bates and other staff?
To answer your question, especially as we're first starting, we are able to put an app, using an app that as long as it's available and we can make that use, we can share that with employees. They will pay for that power. It's not given to them. It's like pulling up to the gas pumps and to get 3 gallon gas. Through those charging apps, they will pay through PGE for the power, but we will be able to do that. As we grow, when we get more demand on the city, then it might be a little tighter to be able to do that, depending on how much the need is. But I do anticipate being able to do that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I understand where the credit from PG comes from.
Yeah, that'll help to the credits with PD for sure.
Thank you.
Questions
you.
for
Any other questions?
Councilor Pratt?
Maybe you said it and I didn't catch it, but by using just one contractor for this and doing as you laid out, do you have an estimate of the savings as opposed to having different people work on it?
Yeah, I can talk about that for just a second. Now, one key thing to remember, back up just a second, even though we're going to hire the general contractor directly, the subcontractors are still going to go out and get at least 3 quotes to make sure that we're getting a good cost on our project. The reason for sharing with Bremic's going to all the hook for the PGE side of it. And then if we hire them to do our side, there isn't 2 separate contractors to where those 2 come together. They're going to be interspersed. That's going to help us save time, and which therefore I think it's going to save us value as well. The other side of that coin is the design, the civil engineer that's going to do PG's work will be the same one that's going to work with us to do that as well. They were the same one that did our project, so he's familiar with the site and he understands about the stormwater.
All right.
Hopefully that answered your question. Okay.
Any other questions for Clay? All right, so at this moment, I'll go ahead, since this is a public hearing, is there anyone in the Zoom meeting who would like to speak in favor of this resolution? All right, hearing none, are there any person attending the meeting who would like to state their opposition to this resolution? Okay, hearing none, last call. Any other interested parties who would like to state their opinion on the project and the resolution? Okay, so at this point, I'll go ahead and close this hearing on resolution 5622-22 and call for deliberations. Councilor Pratt, you have your hand up still, or is that from last time? Okay.
If there's no deliberation, then I'll go ahead and make a motion for approval for resolution number 5622-22.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 5622-22. Any discussions on the motion? All right, Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Councilor Hilliard.
Aye.
Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Clay, you've done a masterful job. Thank you. And I say
Thank you.
aye.
And I vote aye also, so the resolution is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That brings us to our next public hearing, and this is on resolution number 5625-22, declaring the city's election to receive state revenue sharing funds during fiscal year 2022 to 2023. And I believe is Matt leading this discussion. There's Matt. Welcome. So
Thank
the
you.
first thing we do is I'll go and call the public hearing into session, and Matt, go ahead and do a staff presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, we are asking the council to adopt a resolution after conducting this public hearing. Oregon Revised Statutes 221.770 governs allocation of a portion of the state liquor taxes. Liquor tax funds are allocated to cities using factors such as adjusted population and state per capita income based on a formula defined in the statutes. In order to receive state shared revenues, the city is required to do 3 things. The first is have levied property taxes in the prior fiscal year. The second is to pass a resolution approving participation in the program. And the third is to hold 2 public hearings on the use of these funds. The first public hearing was to discuss the possible uses of the funds, and it was held before the Budget Committee on May 31st. Tonight's hearing is the second required hearing and discuss the proposed use of the funds. This hearing only covers the portion of the state liquor taxes defined in ORS 221.770. Remaining liquor taxes, as well as the cigarette taxes, marijuana taxes, and gas taxes, are allocated per capita and are not a part of this public hearing. The amount the city is estimated to receive for this portion of liquor taxes is $434,585 in fiscal year 22-23. These revenues are not restricted by the state, have been programmed into the budget for general city operations. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and we'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions for Matt? All right. So I'm not seeing any questions from Matt. Again, this is a public hearing, so there anyone in the meeting who would like to voice support for this resolution? Anyone who'd like to voice opposition to this resolution? Anyone who'd like to state any kind of interest in this resolution? All right. With that, I'll go ahead and close the hearing and open the discussion up for deliberation with council. Any discussion or deliberations?
If there's no discussion on the motion, then I move for approval for resolution number 5625-22 and the $434,000 come into our coffers.
Again, Councilor Pratt, you seconded it, all right? I heard you. All right. So I have a motion seconding the motions. Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Councilor Hilliard.
Aye.
Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
I vote aye also. It was adopted by unanimously. All right. Moving on to a public hearing, which is quasi-judicial, so I'm gonna have to read the script, but this is for consideration of ordinance number 1467-22, requesting the annexation of approximately 1.44 acres of land located north of the intersection of Southwest Herman Road and Southwest Sipole Road, tax map lot 2S12 DC 00700, into the city of Tualatin, and simultaneously withdrawing the territory the Washington County Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District and Urban Road Maintenance District, file number ANN 2-0001. As a quasi-judicial hearing, I have to go ahead and read the script per Oregon State statute. The state legislature requires the following information to be read. 1, criteria for approval of the proposed annexation are in TDC 33.010. The territory to be annexed is within the metro urban growth boundary. The owners of the territory to be annexed have petitioned to be annexed. The application is consistent with applicable provisions of ORS Chapter 222. The property is contiguous to the city or separated from it by only a public right-of-way or stream. Where the annexation is consistent with directly applicable criteria for boundary changes in the Metro Code, an urban service provider agreement or annexation plan adopted under ORS 195.065, urban planning or other agreement other than those under ORS 195-065 between the affected entity and necessary parties, comprehensive plan and public facility plans, regional framework plan or functional plan, where the proposed change will promote or not interfere with the timely, orderly, and economic provisions of public facilities and services, consistency with other applicable criteria for the boundary change in question under state and local law. Item 2, testimony and evidence must be directed toward the above criteria or those criteria in the development code which you believe apply to this decision. Item 3, If additional documents or evidence is provided in support of the application, any party shall be entitled to a continuance of this hearing. Number 4, unless there is a continuance before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, a participant may request before the hearing is closed that the record remain open for at least 7 days after the hearing. Item number 5, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements for evidence sufficient to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow this council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Item 6, the hearing will begin with the city staff report, followed by testimony in favor of the application, followed by opposition to the application. Rebuttal will be then permitted. Then the hearing will be closed and the council will deliberate towards a decision. If any council members wish to announce any potential conflicts of interest, bias, or ex parte contact, please do so now. All right, I'm not seeing anybody's hands up. Terrific. So with that, I turn this over to their Steve for the city staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. So good evening. Steve Cooper, Assistant Community Development Director, and I'm going to in turn turn to Keith Leonard, Associate Planner, to make the presentation on the application this evening.
Good evening. Let me get the presentation going. My screen was kind of blocked. Okay, you all see that? Okay. My name's Keith Leonard. I'm an associate planner here with the city of Tualatin, and I will be presenting this annexation case, EN 22-0001. It's for annexation of tax lot 700. There we go. So the annexation proposal is for 1.44 acres of property. The property is located just north of the Southwest and Southwest Herman Road intersection. The property is designated MG or manufacturing. That's what it would come in as the zoning. And then if there's any future development, they would still have to go through an architectural review and would have to meet the Tualatin Development Code criteria. So here's the location. As I mentioned, it's just north of Southwest Side Pole, Southwest Herman Road intersection. If you notice to the east, to the north, and the west, you do have current industrial development. To the south, there's also a business. And then where the utilities would come into the property would be along the eastern border. There's 40-foot easement, both for access and utilities, and that's where they would come up. So property again, outlined in red. The property to the north will remain in unincorporated Washington County. Those areas encircled by that green line that indicates it's still in the county. As I mentioned, the majority of the uses in this area are industrial. The zoning is general manufacturing, and further south, you do get into unincorporated Washington County. That is not part of our urban growth boundary. So applicable criteria, as the mayor mentioned, we have to look at the Tualatin Code, the Metro Code, and also the Oregon Revised Statutes. I'm not going to go through all the criteria. They are in court for your further review. I'm going to touch on the picture ones. So yes, it's within the urban growth boundary. The owner, Side Pole Property LLC, has petitioned their consultant, AKS, with the application. For the Metro Code, there are city services within a reasonable distance where they could be extended into the property. As I mentioned, that would be extended most likely along the 40-foot easement. Then finally, the property is not within any other, it's a budding property that's already within the, so we meet that criteria. And as I again, no development here. This is purely just for an annexation. So conclusions and recommendations, the findings and analysis that were in your packet tonight demonstrate that compliance with the applicable Oregon revised states and Metro Code and the Tualatin Development Code have been met. And staff recommends the approval of ANN 22-0001 and adoption of ordinance number 1467-2. And that concludes my presentation at this time.
All right, Keith, thank you. At this point, the applicant can state their case or make a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Tony Mills. I'm with AKS Engineering and Forestry. We're the consultant representing Stable Properties LLC for this project. Just want to say that we're excited to join the city, bring this property in, and we're here if there are any questions.
All right. All right. So at this point, do folks have any questions for Keith or Mr. Mills? Okay, pretty quiet bunch tonight. All right. Just like our previous hearings, that will ask for persons in favor of this ordinance and for this annexation to state their support of the annexation. All right. Are there any folks opposed to this annexation? Or do we have any other interested parties that are concerned or have feelings either way on this annexation? All right, so hearing no public comment either way, I'll go ahead and close the hearing and ask for deliberations by City Council on this annexation. Council President Grimes.
May I ask a question of staff at this point?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize if this is not a smart question. I'm just wondering, because I'm curious, who pays for utilities, stormwater, sewer to be extended to this property once it's annexed? Is that something the city pays for, the applicant pays for, or is paid for in part by the SDC charges?
And would be paying for those services unless there's like a public project within that area, but they'd be paying for those extensions.
I'm sorry, your answer got cut off. Did you say the applicant?
Yeah, the applicant or the property owner, the developer, whoever is wanting to construct on that property would have to pay for that. In some cases, you might have a public project in the area which would soften those expenses, but I'm not aware of one that's immediately done in this area. So,
thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Other questions or comments or deliberations? Very quiet. All right. So if I'm not hearing any deliberations, do I have a motion for reading by title only?
I'll make a motion for first reading by title only for ordinance 1467-22.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for reading by title only of ordinance number 1467-22. Any discussion on that motion or motions? Councilor Pratt? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Hillier?
Aye.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Council President Grimes?
Aye.
I vote aye also. Sherlyn?
Thank you. An ordinance annexing territory north of the Southwest Herman Road and Southwest Sipole Road in tax map 2S 121 DC lot 700 in the city of Tualatin withdrawing the territory from the Washington County Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District and Urban Roads Maintenance District, ANN 22-0001.
All right. Do I have a
I'll make a motion for second reading by title only for ordinance 1467-22.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for second reading by title only of ordinance number 1467-22. Any discussions and motions? Councilor Pratt?
Aye.
Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Hillier?
Aye.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Council President Grimes?
Aye.
I vote aye, also unanimous. Go ahead, Charlotte.
An ordinance annexing territory north of the Southwest Herman Road and Southwest Cypole Road intersection, tax map 2S121 DC, lot 700, into the city of Tualatin, withdrawing the territory from the Washington County Enhanced Sheriff Patrol District and Urban Roads Maintenance District, ANN 22-0001.
Thank you. Do a motion for adoption.
So moved to adopt ordinance 1467-22.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1467-22. Any discussion on those motions? Councilor Pratt?
Aye.
Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Hillier?
Aye.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Council President Grimes?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye also. The ordinance is unanimously approved and adopted. Thank you.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
All right. That moves us on to general business, and item number one under general business is authorization for a pilot license agreement with Bird Scooters. I think Nick is leading this. There's Nick. Welcome again.
Mayor, Council, see y'all again. Nick Westendorf, Deputy Public Works Director, here to discuss e-scooter operations with you. I will get my screen shared. If I can remember how to do this. Okay. And we should be full screen. Oh, this is, are you seeing presenter mode?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Should be good now. All right. Here we go. So this evening, I'll run through a brief history of how we've gotten here tonight, go over the pilot agreement that staff has prepared in coordination with scooters, talk about what happened after the pilot agreement, and go into staff recommendation and then field and comments. So just briefly, 2021, Bird approached the city with us and operating in Tualatin. We had a handful of meetings at the staff with Bird, with some other jurisdictions, learned a little bit more about what the options could look like, shared that information with council via memo, into a meeting in front of you all in January with Bird and about operations, and learned a little bit more. Got interest from you all that you would like us to continue moving forward. Since January, we have worked on drafting a pilot agreement, coordination with Bird and a bunch of our internal staff stakeholders. And so we're here this evening, we've got that wrapped up, and we're looking for direction on moving forward with that. As I go over the pilot, these are some of the topics I hit on. I'm going to try to keep it fairly high level, but I did want to discuss some of the principles in mind as this was drafted. Go over some operations will look like in the city. Safety was something we've heard a lot about. I want to touch on that. Compliance as well, just trying to make sure it's looked at and scooters aren't a nuisance. And then sharing as well. So throughout the past, we've just tried to keep a few basic principles in mind, keep the pilot agreement at the right level, and try to get what we get out of it without being too restrictive or too prescriptive. And so these words were what we had come up at the staff level, and really we just make sure that this pilot agreement allows the city to adjust as things unfold and we learn more and the operations gain steam. And we want to make sure that this is really a partnership with Bird community to make sure that everyone gets the most out of it, and this can be done safely. So in terms of the agreement itself, we're proposing a single 12-month pilot program agreement. It's not exclusive, so this isn't just for Bird. Any provider could come in if they wanted to. Bird is the only one that's shown interest, but we didn't want to make an exclusive deal. The deployment will start small. 50 to 75 scooters is what we're hoping for. They had mentioned the city could potentially support 100 to 150, but we really wanted to keep it small and manageable and then scale up as the demand is there, and then flood the city with scooters. We were able to agree upon a 10-cent per ride fee to the city. So that's a flat fee regardless of the trip length or cost. That seemed to be the most feasible for regulation and not overly impactful to users. So that will be the recouping of the right-of-way use and some of the spend to kind of help implement the pilot. The agreement can be canceled by either party at any time. So like I said, there's a lot of flexibility in here. And Bird both have numerous opportunities throughout the agreement to make it and cancel if things aren't working with some short notice. And then data sharing was something we also wanted. So we won't get specific rider demographic data, but we will see start and stops, and we'll see folks are using the scooters to get around town. We're hopeful that that could help drive our transportation planning efforts, as well as maybe pursue grant futures, just more data to see kind of where that missing leg of transportation is. So operations. Throughout regulation, like bikes has kind of been our guiding principle. We don't want to make this substantially more restrictive than bicycles. Kind of had that as our guiding principles, try to keep it like bikes as much as we can. That said, there are a couple deviations, which is, bikes and pedestrians will take precedent. So scooters are going to need to use bikes and ped and not block bike and ped facilities. As you hear in the picture, this is how we hope they'll get parked. So up at the curb, neatly stood up. Users need to take a photo when they park them. So hopefully that encourages to kind of put them where they belong. Scooters will be primarily on the road in the bike if possible. If there's not a bike lane to the right of the road when safe, and then they could use shared paths or sidewalks. Again, trying to take that same approach as bikes, like do what's safe and visible for the users and their comfort level. So try to keep it in the bike facilities when visible. And then I mentioned they will need to yield to pedestrians and bikes. Those will have the right of way in those facilities, all the shared facilities. Safety was something we heard a lot from council and from staff, and it seems like Bird's really got a good handle on this, but we did have lengthy discussions about it. And so there will be an educational campaign. Bird has a lot of materials we can utilize, social media, newsletter, outreach materials on like how to ride and how to park and some of the FU stuff. We will also be encouraging helmets for users. Users will have to be 18 or older, so that'll be the demographic we'll have. We'll encourage when possible. We had also talked about like a kickoff event. Bird in the city kind of shared. We'll maybe give away some helmets and do some public education at that as well. But we envision this. We'll do a rollout, and then there'll probably be some on education as it goes on and as issues arise, concerns. And then we do have some ability to manipulate the usage of the scooters if we need to. So geofencing, that will basically allow us to determine scooters can and can't operate. So if we have areas where they become a safety hazard, Fred Meyer parking lot, high school, skate park ramps, that kind of thing, we can limit usage in those areas to try to curb where folks can go with them. And then we can also put timers in place. We're going to roll it out pretty open. But if you want to restrict time, after bars or during a large festival, if we want to try to restrict usage during those times to limit pedestrian scooter conflicts, we can. So we do have some of those tools deployed at any time during the pilot program. And again, that's just really fun coordination between city staff and Bird. Compliance, this is always a hot topic with the scooters. I think we've all seen somewhere funny that they don't belong in our time around Portland. So that was definitely a focus with us in the agreement. Bird is going to actually have a contract staff that lives in or around Tualatin. It will be the individual responsible for maintaining our fleet. And so we'll have somebody local, and they will be responsible for all of the compliance issues. So moving scooters, picking up scooters, repairing scooters. So we hope that many of the complaints or concerns or comments will go to Bird. We'll funnel them through staff to Bird, but Bird will be the ones largely taking on the work. Folks can use an app to share and submit a complaint through the Bird app. There's a phone number and an email that will be posted on Scooter. So those are available for folks that aren't using the app. So there's a couple ways that complaints can get driven. We'll also take them in through media or phone channels at the city and just forward them over to the counter. So we'll try to make that as streamlined as possible. We do have provisions in the agreement that any issues during business hours that will be resolved within 4 hours. If those come in after hours or on a holiday, within 4 hours the next morning. So we're going to try to be pretty responsive to those. And then, like I've said throughout, the city can request changes at any time to how we're operating, how we're dealing with complaints, or any things that we see that need to be adjusted as we go through the pilot. Once the pilot agreement is done, we would look to get official. So rather than just continue the current agreement, we would look to codify something a little bit permanent. That would be for any e-scooter share scooter operations. We would codify that, and then folks could come and apply to operate in the city. Before that, we will come back to council. We will tell you, how we felt, to hear your feedback, and then get further direction. But that's what it would look like. Do this 12-month stint with Bird. We'll come back probably a little bit before that's over, and then it would just become a permanent operation through some type of ordinance, I would imagine. So staff's recommendation is execute a 12-month pilot with Bird. More specifically, this would be authorization from Council Sherilyn to enter into that agreement. So that's the direction we're looking for. And with that, I will open it up for questions and sharing.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great presentation. And I just came back from visiting family in LA, and they were like everywhere, but hopefully that's not going to happen here. You said that Bird will be any other company can come in and operate. There's another one, I can't remember the name of it, but how is that going to how is Bird going to control that? I mean, if there's another company coming in, I'm trying to understand it, because would they really comply, be fine with it?
Yeah, so the pilot agreement we've drafted is not specific to any one provider, but any e-scooter provider that wants to operate in the city have to come in and execute that same agreement with the city. So we've got this draft agreement that we could use for any company. Bird is the only one that's interested right now. So we'll execute that pilot agreement with Bird. They'll be the only ones operating, but should Align or some other company down the road decide they're also interested in Tualatin and they feel the market can support another scooter provider, they could come to the city, go through that same pilot agreement, have all the same restrictions Bird has, and then we'd have essentially just two providers. I don't know that the likelihood of that is very high. Tualatin's relatively small, but we didn't want to make it so that Bird was the only one that could operate. So I don't foresee that happening, but we just did make it exclusive.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor Pratt and then Councilor Brooks.
Okay, Nick, I have 3 questions. The first one is, on those pictures of the parked scooters, there's a wide sidewalk. And so in our neighborhoods, would you just park the scooter right on the curb at the end of the street?
Yeah, so we've got some language in the rules, if you will, about depending on the type of road where they go. So they either go at the curb, they either go right at the border of the road and the grassy area if there isn't a curb. The idea is to keep them out of the way of the pedestrians, out of the way of traffic, and stood up neatly so that the contractor can find them. That will look a little different depending on where they are in town, but you've got the right idea. Try to tuck them right there in that space.
Okay, and then I was wondering, that 10 cents per ride that the city, does that cover the cost of monitoring this program for staff? Do you know?
It's
kind of guessing right now.
Yeah,
right.
it's really hard to say how much time it's going to take for staff. I think it's a good, kind of thumb in the air estimate. It'll help us, for any other right-of-way use, we recoup some revenue. So that was kind of the mindset behind it. And I expect once it takes off, Bird will probably do a lot of the heavy lifting. So they'll be the ones running around actually maintaining. So I think we'll probably be okay, but it'll be something we'll assess at the end of the pilot.
Okay. And the last question is, like, I'm going to try using one of these and I'm going to have an accident, guaranteed. So is the liability all on Bird or is any of it on the city?
No, we've got strong indemnification language that our attorney Chad Jacobs has drafted for us. Bird assumes whatever liability they have, which I'm sure they handle through the app when you sign up to ride them.
Okay, great.
We're involved at that. It'd be like any other right-of-way user that takes a spill.
Okay, my question. My first question is, with the complaints, do you guys get the data sets on that?
Yeah, Bird will provide that to us. And then typically at our level and staff, we track the ones that we'll field up front too. But Bird will provide all of that information to us as well.
Okay, because I think statistically it'll be really informative as well. So that's good. And and then I want to say I remember when we first started talking about this, and I was joking with one of my fellow counselors who shall not be named, and we're saying, well, you can go on there and be on the news or whatever, and they said, I'm not going on it, you go on it. I said, I'm not going on it. Well, I was in Lake Tahoe and went on one of the Bird scooters while I was out there, and it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. It still takes a little bit to get used to it, but a lot of my initial trepidation, that's just being old or something, I don't know when that snuck up on me, kind of went away. So I think that's really good. I think that one of the things for me is I was just vacationing, so I didn't have a helmet with me. So I'm excited that we're going to be trying to figure out ways of, I'm trying to figure out how people negotiate all that, the helmet, like when do you have your helmet with you and how do you carry it around when you're not on it? And then I guess one of the things is just like going over bumps and railroad tracks and things like that. And I'm just curious if there are like guidelines around, what's safe and what's not safe just riding. So if somebody wanted to brush up on how to negotiate, because we have some, just like we talked about earlier, some of our neighborhoods have the sidewalks, some don't. We've got bumpy areas, we've got smooth areas, so we're in pretty good shape. But
yeah, so Bird does have some good materials on rider education and trying to get folks accustomed to like how to scoot safe. They also have some type of, I forget the name of it, Michael mentioned it in one of our meetings. If you're older or younger or cautious, there's like a setting or a type of rider you could be where it limits the speed even more. So I think it'll be a combination of education and then, just users being aware of their surroundings and trying to make good decisions like they would on a bicycle or a privately owned scooter. But I mean, we'll definitely push out video and encourage people to yield and go slow and try to, get used to it, if you will, safely.
Yeah, I started off a lot slower and then I started speeding up. So it was pretty fun, and I hope that it's successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Grimes.
Thank you. I like your idea, Nick, about pushing out information. And I was sort of wondering, since some of the people that might rent them, especially initially, might not be like avid bicyclists or people that are used to using the scooter, because the whole novelty of it I can see be kind of enticing. I'm thrilled we're going to have a scooter wrangler that'll live in the area that'll be able to come through. But then my other question is, if we have a scooter corral for lack of a better term, where they kind of congregate. Is there a way that we could, in an inexpensive way, like sandwich boards or something like that, maybe put up just a little tiny bit of guidance for people that might be like first riders, just like, please ride your scooter as that's a bike, obey bike rules, try to stay off the sidewalk if possible. Just, not like the list you're going to get when you rent it. We all know you go scroll, 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 accept, get on with it. Like just,
Right.
Something little bullet points, maybe 3 or 4 tips to help people like navigate easier and more safe for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We haven't discussed where the parking centers will be, but typically there's larger areas where they're more popular. And we could definitely assign like physical signage where those scooters are going to be staged with some of those high level, keep to the right, those kind of safety things. So yeah, I think it's great. We'll work on that with Bird as we roll out.
Okay, good. Because I could see myself like just as a usual person, like get kind of excited and rent one, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, ooh, can I go down the river walk or not? But I'm a bike, but I'm not. So yeah, that could be good. Post some little things around town like reminders.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Nick?
I have one I forgot to ask.
Sure.
I just wanted to know how they stay charged.
Yeah, so the scooter wrangler, as Councilor Grimes called them, will come collect them, they charge them, and then redeploy them. So Bird has an algorithm built, tells our local contractor where they go, when they need to be charged, and when they need to be maintained. So that individual will drive around, grab them, make sure they're safe, get them charged, and then put back out where they think folks will want them to be when they go to ride again. That's also how we'll correct for the ones that kind of get ridden into the outskirts of town that maybe wouldn't be popular for a second destination back.
Okay. Where do they charge them?
At their house, I believe.
Oh, okay. So they have a charger. Okay. Thank
Part of
you.
their compensation, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, I just have one, Nick.
Yes,
The
sir.
agreement, it talks about the 4-hour response time being between 8 and 5 next business day. What is a business day? Is this Monday through Friday? Is this 7 days a week? Because weekends are going to have me concerned considering we have most of our event weekends.
I also caught Mayor before the meeting, so good catch. We will need to define that with Bird. I think it was originally written, it was Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, which I believe was their contract employees' days. That's typically how we were intending it to be read. Whatever days their contractor is working, we want the response time to be higher. And then if it's outside of that individual's working hours, we want to be taken care of the next time they're at work in a timely manner. So
Monday through Friday doesn't cut it, really. I mean,
yeah. No, good point. So I will have to confirm with Bird what those days are, but I believe it was Monday. It might have been Monday through Saturday. I'd have to check.
I recall asking the same kind of question, and they had a period of time where it was something like between 8 and 10 at night. Their average window for support of the scooters, and it was 7 days a week. But I understand that one contractor working 7 days a week might be a challenge, but we at least got to include Saturday. Where most of our, events in the park and the stuff we're going to do over the summer's on a Saturday.
Duly noted. I will, when we get that language cleaned up, I'll send out a little update to Sherilyn to pass along what that will be deemed.
All right. President Grimes.
I'm just like the question person. I appreciate that it's just a 12-month agreement, and then at that point we can kind of stop and take stock, and before we make the second one. I really appreciated that. Thank you for doing that. Just on the off chance that it ends up being sort of like a real problem, like either with vandalism or they're not being used and it's unhappy because they're not being used, or we're finding them in horrible spots like on the Max line or something like that. Is there some sort of language in the contract that could help us sooner than 12 months in? Okay, if it were to go south, unfortunately.
Yeah, we could begin to either restrict areas of operation, reduce number of scooters, or cease
Okay.
operations altogether. And that could be driven by the city or Bird. And if it was like you described, it'd likely be both parties that would be uninterested in continuing. But yeah, we definitely don't have to wait 12 months. We do want to give it a good go, and we'll make
Yeah.
adjustments to try to make it successful. But if it's a flop, we will cut bait as needed.
All right, perfect. Thanks.
Other questions for Nick? All right, so discussion. Pretty quiet. Do we want to give the city manager authorization to execute this agreement?
Yeah, I move that
So
we
we need a
authorize.
motion and a vote.
Okay, well, I move that we authorize the city manager to execute a pilot license agreement with Bird Scooters.
I have a motion and a second authorizing the city manager to execute a pilot license agreement with Bird Scooters. Any discussion on the motions? Okay, Councilor Pratt,
Aye.
Councilor Sacco,
Aye.
Councilor Hillier, Council Grimes. I'm sorry, Councilor Brooks, shadow aye.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
I vote aye also. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Nick.
Have a good night.
You too. All right, that brings us to item number 2, general business consideration of ordinance number 1468-2, establishing a core area parking district CAPD tax rate for fiscal year 2022-2023. And Mr. Taylor, Jonathan, how are you? You're muted.
I'm having technical difficulty. You know, after 2.5 years, I think I should be able to get this. But anyway, afternoon, Mayor, members of council, tonight, both myself and Clay is bringing forward ordinance 1468-22. It's the annual core area parking district rate consideration for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. On April 20th of 2022, our core area parking district board recommended a subtle tax rate increase of 5%. The municipal cost index proposed 8%, but the core area parking board members felt the need for an incremental approach for the following annual year rate. And so that new rate is going to be 182.86 for the next fiscal year. So staff recommends the approval of ordinance 468 on behalf of the core area parking board district.
All right. As a quick and brief staff report, Councilor Pratt, you represent the council on the board, I believe. Any comments?
Yeah. Just that I've been on this board a couple of years, and the idea, like, I think last year maybe we increased it a little more than a little rate, and the idea is kind of like I think council has done in other areas, is where we want to keep the incremental rate pretty even, so it's fairly similar and expected, as opposed to, you know, ups and downs and big increases in certain years that really hurt people. And so the idea was to just keep it incrementally kind of in the same range each year.
Any questions for Jonathan or Pratt on this? All right. So this is an ordinance, so this is first and second readings, all the good stuff.
I'll make a motion for first reading by title only for ordinance number 1468-22.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading by title only of ordinance 1468-22. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Hillier.
Aye.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
I vote aye also. Sherilyn.
An ordinance adopting the core area parking district tax rate and credit for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
Thank you, Sherilyn. I'll make a motion for second reading by title only for ordinance 1468-22.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for reading by title only, second reading by title only of ordinance number 1468-22. Any discussions? Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Hilliard.
Aye.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
I vote aye also. Do I have a motion to, oh, sorry, you have to read it. Sorry.
An ordinance adopting the core area parking district tax rate and credit for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 1468-22.
Second.
I have a motion, a second option of ordinance 1468-22. Any discussion on that? I'm going to rotate around here, go to a different way. Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Hilliard.
Aye.
Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
I vote aye also. The ordinance is adopted unanimously. All right, terrific. That brings us to items removed from consent. We had none. That brings us to council communications. So first thing I want to bring up is circle back to the beginning of the meeting during citizen comment, resident comment or public comment about the proclamation request for Pride from the folks who from the school, from the GSA group. How do people feel about that? Okay to proceed with that?
Yep.
Okay, thumbs
Mayor,
up.
Mayor, I would just like to say that I'm hoping we'll include, I love the youth came and their voice is exceptional as always. Let's just be sure inclusive of all parts of our community, especially as we're getting to meet people on our DEI committee, our planning committee. There is a lot of appetite for this in our community. I'm really proud that the students came to help us move this forward because I know there are also people listening here tonight who would like to be part of that and a bigger movement in the community. So I'm excited about this.
Great. Councilor Brooks.
I also want to really acknowledge the students for stepping forth. I'm really excited that I think that as we move forward on our committee, our diversity committee, and that gets settled, that there'll be even more action in the future. I wanted to also mention that School Board Chair Bowman texted me during the meeting and told me that they just adopted their pride, the pride that was brought for tonight, resolution at TTD just now. And then I also want to encourage us to think about, I noted that the Tiger Tualatin School District did a lot for Pride, and Tiger put it into their newsletter, all these events, and I would like for us to think about, and for our committee to think about how we might join with them next year. And I fully support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess Sherilyn, go ahead and go through the process and draft the proclamation and get it ready for reading next meeting in 2 weeks, please.
Yes, thank you. And we will coordinate with the students as also the equity committee planning group who have expressed interest.
That's terrific. All right. So that brings us to communications, the roundtable we didn't have. I'll go ahead and start off with Councilor.
You came back to me, huh? I wanted to start really quick and say I went to I've not gone to an event at the Pool Center, the Meals on Wheels lunch, and I went to a thing put on by Washington County about being a grand ally, just relates with this pride stuff. And I found it so informative and such an open, there were a lot of, I think people that really care, but had a lot of questions. And I just thought it was like a very good use of my time and other people's time. So thanks to Juanita Pool Center for putting that on. and went to C4 meeting, and TriMet came there, and they're trying to deal with the diversion that tolling will cause. But as they go through their process of all the things they're trying to accomplish, to me it looks like an impossible task, because they're trying to have regular service all over the place and serve our whole metro area, which seems unfathomable to me. The good thing is that one of their top 2 projects they have on the list is to have a bus line going from Meridian Park Hospital to the Oregon City Transit Center. So that will help somewhat with the tolling issue. And it was good to hear that we'll have some kind of transit out there. And then, our council and advisory appointments, we met with some people that I'm sure will be coming up, but I just want to say once again, we had more applicants than positions, and they were all very well qualified. It's pretty amazing.
All right, thank you. Councilor Sacco.
We had our first equity planning committee meeting, and it went really well. Our meeting was basically informational, getting to know you, laying the foundation for the work ahead. It's a wonderful group of community members that literally moved me to tears. Just a group of people that love their community and are really passionate and positive about this work. So I'm really excited to be a part of that and see that work forward. I also wanted to acknowledge that June 19th is celebrated as Juneteenth and was established as a national holiday in 2021. And it will be observed on Monday, so between now and our next meeting. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge that and celebrate Juneteenth. And in the spirit of our conversations tonight, happy Pride to everyone out there.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hillier.
Thank you. So I got to attend the SRO task force meeting on last Monday, June 6th, and we had a much smaller group. We did get to meet in person, which was exciting, but we had a smaller group, I think based on the timing of the meeting notice. And we talked about the focuses which are relationship development, communications and transparency, health and safety, and professional development, and went through what the priorities are, and then kind of the task that we did was a consensus record sheet. I'm not sure anyway, but the things that were prioritized was some continuing education about health and safety, having trauma-informed restorative practices and equity trainings, and records of what SROs and other and the district have engaged in. So some accountability, both directions with communication, which I thought was a addition. There are opportunities to soften the appearance of officers while keeping balanced need for officers to be prepared for when emergencies arise. And I guess I don't remember that part of the conversation. So I must have been at my table. But basically, there was a lot of acknowledgement about the great strides that in relationships that have been made both by the Tigard and Tualatin school resource officers, and that there'll be continued conversations. So this committee will continue on for another year, it appears. And so, or more probably, because I think we'll continue having conversations. And it was nice to get to most of the room. There's about 80% of the participants were officers. And so it was great to get to really hear their engagement, and as always, be very proud of our officers and their input and their sincere engagement in wanting to make the community they've been working in a better place. And then I got to go to school awards night. I think Councillor Grimes probably got to talk about the technology, science and technology scholarship from that the city distributes, but it was a magnificent night, and so many students were recognized in different ways, and it was just nice to see the auditorium filled up with kids and be excited. And I got to be at the grad night party the other night too, so that was they're just so hopeful to see the youth of our community, from the ones that are going to Yale to the ones that are going to really just get a job and figure out who they are and what they're doing next. And we just have a lot to be proud of for the people in our community and their support systems. So congratulations to the graduates of 2022. We're so proud of you.
All right. Councilor Brooks.
Hey guys, happy Pride and happy Juneteenth. I wanted to start off just because we stopped doing a moment of silence, but we had this marker of 1 million deaths and the school shootings. And as we've done and we celebrate these things, I just think it's very important to remember that it's on the backs of a lot of pain and suffering in the community, and we acknowledge that right now. People are grieving and hurting. So on the 27th, I attended one of the Juanita Pohl Center's new program, is the Earthwise group. And I encourage everybody to take a look at it. I have one of the buttons that they made. It's got a globe with a Tualatin T. And the Japanese practice called forest bathing talk, and a certified practitioner came, and it was a really, really good session. And I just encourage everyone to check out the upcoming sessions. There will be, I'm going to give it a complete one in that in a minute. And then on to the Memorial Day observance and picnic. And just want to say, a big thank you. And I know that our mayor will do a great acknowledgement of everybody. But Dale Potts has just put in years of work on this event. The city does such a great job. It's a really, really great picnic. It's just such a meaningful, it doesn't go too long, but it goes deep. And then even people that just happened upon the picnic that were walking through the park and joined us. But it was good to be here honoring veterans that gave their ultimate sacrifice. On the 3rd, although I'm sure the mayor will talk about this, but we did the Tualatin watershed tour with Clean Water Services. And I had never been up to that part of the Tualatin, so it was nice to see where the water stems from, understand the direction. And one of the fun facts I learned is that 70% of the water in the Tualatin is treated. Well, so that's quite a lot. There's 600,000 people that use pretty small river for sewer, sand, and the filtration that they use is like in the top 2% of the whole country because of the amount of demand on the river and the size of it. So that was very interesting. And like I had said, it was really important to connect the river and talk about that countywide, where the dams, the recreational areas are up there, and to encourage people to think about this part of Tualatin too, and county leadership. And then on the 6th, we attended the Tri-County a work group that citizens here have been complaining about the gunfire noise. There were different ideas, and I will also let the mayor cover that because he really took the lead on it. But I just to thank everyone for participating and trying to be a good steward and help solve the problem. I attended as well with Councilor Pratt, the Hialeah Grand Ally group. I just want to thank Marilyn for her leadership at the Pole Center, our staff, and she's putting together great things. And I'm glad that we, as a city, put together a free educational event for Pride. And we also met for the last time with Chief Steele and said goodbye to him with the Tualatin Community Police Foundation on that Tuesday 7th. And then let's see. There's more, but I want to say too, I started doing some of the exercise groups. There's a change at my gym since COVID, and so I've been doing a couple of things through the Pole Center, and I just have to say they're great. And then I want to talk about future things. So we talked about Pollinator Week is coming up, and Coin News reached out and to our Parks Department and are going to be covering that we're a bee city. So they're going to be doing an interview. And on Thursday, I want to remind the community about Viva Tualatin. There's beautiful posters that were made. Thank you, Betsy, for all the work. And that comes on the 9th. Some of the things that are being done from the 12th Wise group, like the Buzz About Bees, things about backyard habitat. They're getting a lot of people signed up. There's a tour of the bamboo garden. They're doing a sunset kayak ride and all kinds of stuff. So take a look. Just encouraging community members, and they're partnering also with the Tualatin Sustainability Network. So hopefully we get a lot of our seniors and our high school students together, and people can come together and learn about how to be better stewards for the environment. So I just wanted to thank all the leadership at the Parks Department for the work on that. Thank you.
Councilor Reyes.
Thank you, Mayor. I did go to a MAC meeting, which is more for it's the commissioners, and we talk a little bit about communications and how we're going to, it's sort of like the network, forget the name of the network that's at Juanita Pole, Tualatin Valley TVC. Anyhow, they are going to, in our meeting, they talked a little bit about how they're going to add sound and visuals and project from the new facility that we have on Herman Road. So it's really exciting. They talked about it, they approved it, and so they're just gonna start providing all that there. And that was exciting to hear that they're doing something for us, and people are really positive about it. So you'll see that happening at the new building, and hopefully we will be able to meet and maybe have hybrid meetings, and that way people can either be in or do it from their comfort of their home, or however that looks, and be more inclusive as people that can't make it to our meetings or couldn't make it to our meeting back in the days. So that's one of the things we talked about. And of course we had our council committee meeting on Monday. Was it Monday? Can't remember. Seems like a long time ago. But it was fun, and always a surprise and our community, just because I just can't believe that we have so many people, not that many spots available, but it's just, we try our best to plug in people everywhere we can. If you're out there, you want to volunteer, just keep doing, just keep volunteering, filling out the application, because it just feels good that community is willing to support and be part of it, and do good. So that's great. Anyhow, that's all I have to report as far as my needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Grimes.
Thank you. We had a meeting last week of the Architectural Review Board at a beautiful new meeting room at the Operations Center. Worked fabulous. The topic of the ARB meeting was the SEPA facility. So we sort of went through the final plan, final strokes, final presentation from the group. And it's promising to be a very beautiful development. Very pretty. Enormous amount. I think what impressed me the most is the enormous amount of thought and careful plan that went into so many different pieces and touches in the development. I mean, everything from having buildings cleverly sort of cantilevered with little balconies so that you now have this sense of, even though it's a 4-story building, you don't have a sense of big square block sort of development. Different, a place for a community garden, and then a place for a sculpted garden, and then areas of green space and grass and walking areas and great communal areas. I just felt like it was just so full of really thoughtful touches that just would improve the quality of life. Everyone that lives there, I just was really impressed with that. I thought that was wonderful. So passed through ARB unanimously. So I'm sure they'll be starting soon up there. So I think it's really nice. There was only one thing that kind of came up that Sherilyn was going to help answer a question. I just had a question about access because Boones Ferry Road is, because it's a major transportation line, it doesn't allow for as many cuts into the road to go in and go out as most roads would. I'm not explaining this well, but I'm tired, so I apologize. So for the SEPA development, you're going to have to go south out of the development through a corner of the Autumn Sunrise development, and then it's going to boink out onto Boones Ferry at a new signalized intersection. And I think the name of that new street is going to be Burgundy, which sounds weird, but I think that's right. So it's going to be a little bit different how I envisioned it. But I think it's going to be, and I think the idea of having a signalized intersection where everybody goes like in and out to get in there, both of those developments, good idea, because I think it's going to be a lot safer, because you guys, traffic on Boones Ferry can kind of get going quickly down there, and then you have some curves and then some right differential in some parts of the road, and it could be less than safe. And we want to have lots of pedestrian and bike traffic and all kinds of stuff around there. So I think that's a good idea. But anyway, it was a great meeting. I loved what they had to say, and I think that the committee was really pleased with their presentation, and it's all approved and ready to go. So that was what I did last week.
All right.
I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Quite a few things this last few weeks. Bridget mentioned the Memorial Day observation. I want to thank Dale. Dale's been doing it 10 plus years, I think. And he has passed the baton, and I just want to thank him for all those years of dedication. Also want to thank the VFW volunteer who helped organize the event, in addition to city staff. The city of Tualatin was a premier partner and paid for the lunch over at Community Park. It was a beautiful day. It started raining, and what the heck, there was Dale saying he never had it rain on his events. Yeah, I think he jinxed himself. But I want to thank everyone who was involved in making that happen, and I look forward to Memorial Day observations in the future. Bridget was mentioning Clean Water Services gave a tour of the Tualatin watershed. I encourage folks to do that in the future. They're going to try this twice a year for city staff, for counselors, for anyone who's really interested, is related to water, because they want to show what they're doing. Clean Water Services wants to show what their mission is and what they do beyond, what a lot of us have seen with the treatment facilities. So next time they do that, I encourage you to sign up. It was a fascinating tour, as Bridget mentioned, to go to the beginnings of the Tualatin River and see how clean it is. It's night and day between what we see here in Tualatin and what happened, up in the hills around Hag Lake. And it was very informative of, how the dams work in Hag Lake and everything that's involved with getting the water through the system. And as Bridget mentioned, at certain times of the year, 70% of the water in Tualatin River has been put there by Clean Water Services because they've cleaned the water and put it back. So if they hadn't been doing that, the Tualatin River at certain times of the year would just be a trip. So it's pretty impressive what they do. So I encourage you, when you get the invite to attend, do that. Councilor Hillier was a little shy about her Tualatin Together year-end event celebration, and looking forward. Thank you for inviting me. Councilor Pratt was there also. It was very interesting to see the people part of Tualatin Together as part of their celebration of volunteers of recognition, but very interesting about the Communities That Care presentation. And I'm looking forward to hearing who responds back to Cindy and Tualatin Together, and who wants to get involved with this, Community That Cares program. I did have a chuckle that, Cindy was basically the Wizard of Oz at the event, because she had to go back and forth into this back to change the slides and presentation. So it's kind of funny how she's running back and forth and thumbs up, thumbs down. But thank you very much, Cindy, for putting that together. Going back to Representative Prusak in the gun noise mitigation roundtable, it was it Councilor Brooks was there, I was there, Senator Wagner, Reps Prusak and Neuron, Ree Armitage was there from Senator Wyden's office, Washington County staff. Long story short is the illustration is the state law that has granted the gun club exemption from noise standards is pretty much locked in law. Washington County, even though the gun club is in unincorporated Washington County, even Washington County has no say over noise and noise emitted. So by the end of the meeting, what we're looking forward to and hopefully moving on with is figuring out how to do a public-private partnership to increase the efforts at the gun club, or tactics or methods or sound suppressing technology we can come up with to decrease the noise emanating from the area. So I'm going to follow up with the residents. Patricia Parse has been leading this effort on behalf of residents. I'm going to reach back out to Rep Prusak and see what we can do next. Ree Armitage was thinking there might be some federal money, but we'll see. We're going to have to circle back. I think some people left the meeting a little bit discouraged, but I think we can continue on and see what we can do with the gun club that they're amenable to, and build trust on both sides that the goal is not to close the club, it's not to limit the club. We just want to mitigate the sound. So how can we do that together? And then on the 10th, the Mayor's Lunch, Washington County Mayor's Lunch, Catholic Charities presented, they are Catholic Charities of Portland, is working on Afghan refugee housing. A lot of the Afghan refugees are coming to the United States, and they're looking for any kind of cities or any kind of assistance in placing these Afghan refugees into stable housing in our communities. Beaverton is taking the lead on this, but Mayor Beatty is looking for other cities or anybody who's interested. Please let Catholic Charities know that we're interested, or they're interested in helping support place these refugees in housing. Today had two meetings, or in the noon was Washington County Coordinating Committee. The came out with a list of projects that will be going out to public comment for MSTIP. In District 3, most of our projects got selected. I had to, how I put it, I advocated for Boones Ferry Road. Boones Ferry Road did not make the list. The Parkway extension did make the list. I let folks know that a lot of residents have concern about the bridge, and if the bridge does get built, that is going to be an issue on Boones Ferry Road. So the mayors of Sherwood and in addition to Mayor Truax of Forest Grove, we agreed upon putting the Boones Ferry project back on for design only, not construction. For public comments right now, it's on there for like 20-something million, which is really big. So the county coordinating committee recommended that we add the Boones Ferry back on to the project list for public feedback as a design only. So about a couple, 3 million. So we'll see what the commissioners do with that, because we're not the final approval. We were just the enemy race, if you will. But I'm hoping that they listen to some of our comments and that they do take this out, because I'm sure even if they just bring out the bridge by itself, they will certainly hear about Boones Ferry Road. So Miles will do the outreach at the same time for that project. They might find out that there's more support for the Boones Ferry Road project than there is the extension. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, it's got approved, and we'll move on with that. What's next? Later this afternoon was the Aging Task Force. The Aging Task Force is re-looking at their mission statement, tweaking it a little bit, and trying to focus on what their priorities would be for the next year or so. They're heavily looking, obviously, at housing and transportation right now. So they're going to be talking to city staff, talking to Carolyn, talking to us on how we can let them inform us on our efforts when it comes to transportation and housing, especially from the lens of the aging community. Speaking, what is next? Tomorrow, I invite you, Meals on Wheels. The lunch program is back on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Pole Center. I'm meeting Susan at 11:45 for lunch at the Meals on Wheels. Again, at the Pole Center. I know we got to avoid quorum, so only 3 of us can be there, but I'm going to be there. So two of you who are available, I encourage you to attend. It's again Tuesdays and Thursdays from noon to 1. So if you can't make it tomorrow, maybe pop by on another Tuesday or Thursday. And finally, I have an ask. We've sent a couple emails back and forth about looking at amending our municipal code to prohibit the carrying of loaded firearms in public areas. This is one of 2 things we're allowed to do per state. Other than that, the state has total jurisdiction when it comes to firearms in the city. We've already invoked the ability to not allow discharge of weapons in the city of Tualatin. But considering what's happened in the weeks in Texas and in New York, having the moms here this earlier in this meeting, I'd just like to ask if there's 3 of the counselors who just ask city staff to draft an ordinance that would amend our municipal code to prohibit carrying of loaded firearms, because it would not impact a military person who's on official duty. It doesn't impact police officers. It doesn't impact someone who's licensed to carry a concealed weapon. It's just one of those things where I picture some of these shooters who are making their walk across an open air, or making their approach to a school or something like that, or a supermarket, and having this, I don't know if it's going to help or not, but it can't hurt, and it's a statement that we won't tolerate loaded firearms in our public areas. So I just wonder if I got 3 other votes to direct Sherilyn and staff to draft an ordinance. So I see 2 fingers, 3 fingers. All right, the fingers.
Is it possible? I'm sorry. Is it possible to have a bit of a conversation about that before we go straight to an ordinance? I'd kind of like to get like a law enforcement take on it, since the ordinance wouldn't impact like concealed carry, people that have permits for weapons. I'm just kind of curious like what their take might be on this and enforcement, and if it, aids them in what they're doing or provides any relief, because obviously that would be my first concern is how do we support law enforcement? How do we support first responders? How do we make their job easier and give them the tools they need in this time of distress for everybody? Can we, is that doable to have that discussion? Chief Pickering still with us?
There he is. Welcome back.
I know there's several jurisdictions around us that have similar ordinances. Tigard has them, Oregon City has, excuse me. Tigard's ordinance is a Class A misdemeanor. You fail to comply with the officer's request to inspect firearm. So there is a little bit of teeth to the ordinance that Tigard has written. As far as the interaction, I asked actually, I was talking with the Tigard officer today about this. He says they don't use it very often. Don't see many open carry, actual, individuals who really are trying to make us is really what it is. So I think there's still some research to be done on how that will look. And it's another tool that an officer would have to, if nothing else, make a contact and identify who the subject is. So.
Councilor Reyes.
Would it be just good to go over what the means, because I don't want people thinking also that we are like, I just want to make it clear in case someone's listening to this when, they're like listening to what we're petitioning. So, I think that's what Councilor Grimes, President Grimes were saying. Just like a quick say, this is what it means. So that way people have no confusion and may do other things that they, maybe we're doing something that is violating the Second Amendment or anything like that. I think that it would be good to just explain it.
So this is authorized by the state of Oregon for us to do this. Where prohibit is a carrying of a loaded weapon, say into Tualatin Commons, unless you're a police officer or you're a member of the military on official duty, or you're a person who's licensed to carry a concealed weapon. Those three are the big three exemptions from this. So it would be something, someone who just runs over to, I'm going to worst case scenario, has purchased a recent weapon at Cabela's, comes walking through the commons with a loaded AR-15. And it gives the officers an opportunity to intercept that person and ask to see if it's loaded or not. And they can ask him or her to unload the weapon, and it's done. We're just making sure that we've all seen the protests at the state capitol with folks with their AR-15 slung behind their back. We're just asking, you're fine to do that. We can't control that. We're just asking that they not be loaded. Councilor Hillier.
Sorry, it wasn't on this topic. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay. Councilor Burke.
I just want to share, especially after what our new chief Pickering mentioned, I just want to share some little small story that somebody talked to me about. There was a gathering at our park. We had people come from out of our city to visit Community Park, and they stopped over at one of our local eateries like Panera, and somebody was intimidating this woman and her daughter, young daughter, with a gun in the bakery. So that's the kind of thing where this exactly what you talked about, Chief, that, you would hate, I don't think it's okay to be intimidating people around town and flashing things and stuff like that. To know if it's loaded or not. And then I just want to say one other thing. I forgot three really important little things. So at the end, will you please recognize me again? Thanks.
Sure. All right. So going back to Councilor Reyes and Council President Grimes, you have other questions? All right. So
No,
saw-
I know I already sent us the emails, but I think it's good to voice it out as well. Not everybody reads them.
Yep. So I saw at least 5 hands up. Like Council President Grimes.
I was just wondering if it might be possible to this to kind of like a work session, so we could talk it through and give Interim Chief Pickering more time to gather information, which I think he said would be helpful. Because I just want to make sure, as much as we want to help, there's, I'm trying to say this in a concise way, I apologize. Because it is legal if you have a permit to carry a loaded weapon in the community, there's a difference between what we're talking about possibly prohibiting, which is a person that would not have a permit, that would just have a loaded firearm in a public place, which I think we all agree it could be catastrophic, and we would want the police to step in and though I'm sure if somebody were walking through a thing with an assault rifle, people would call the police whether they thought it was loaded. But I'm just wondering, because there are certain nuances to this, if we should just do a quick work session and make sure we're all on the same page and understand like the different distinctions and what we can do and we can help enforcement do, and then areas where we wouldn't have control. Because even Councillor Brooks' example becomes awful, by the way. You know, if the particular that had the firearm, my understanding is if they had a concealed weapons permit, they were doing the wrong thing, this ordinance wouldn't have affected their behavior. Menacing would have been a whole separate discussion rather than them being permitted to have a loaded weapon in public. So I'm just wondering if maybe a work session to kind of suss some of this out might not be helpful. And then also, if we're going to have an ordinance, as Sergeant Pickering, Interim Chief Pickering mentioned, teeth with some sort of a fear of maybe that would be something that we want to look doing also, so that if law enforcement wants something with a kick or a hook, we can give them that as well.
I agree with you. I'm asking to have this come right to a city council meeting.
Oh, okay.
That, have our interim chief, our interim city attorney.
It's a mouthful.
And come back to a future work session, and yes, so we can discuss it. I'm not trying to shoot this right to regular city council meeting. No, I agree with you, Council President Grimes.
Okay.
That's a session, but at least kick the effort off that we can have both interims work on this and come back to council.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize if I'm like.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, that's our
I'm
normal
tired
part.
and I'm starting to get rummy, so I'm sorry if I missed the mark on that one. But yes, I'll do work session it. I really would.
All right. So you have what you need for this, Charlene and Chief Pickering, to start off with?
I believe so. We'll put our heads together, talk to Chad, city attorney, because he had responded to an email basically saying that there were some nuances to Tigard's and maybe more updated language. And but I do agree that having it at a work session to kind of suss out all of the information and the usefulness and and kind of maybe some scenarios in which it would be a tool or where it wouldn't be a tool, and just having our thoughts together about it. So would be great.
Councilor Pratt, and then we'll circle back to Councilor Brooks.
Oh, just really quickly, when we have this work session, I'd really like, I know you're gonna have to put a lot of information together, but just what we can do and a quick overview of Second Amendment. Like if you look at the Heller decision, there's a lot, there are limitations within the Second Amendment. It's not a free for all to carry everywhere. Like think it gets misconstrued. So just the limitations that the government does have at the local and federal level. So we're understood correctly what we're looking at here.
All right. So Councilor Brooks, your 3 items.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing that last one up too, because I think that people in the community are very interested in us doing everything that we can do. I wanted to not forget about Blunderdash. I did in passing, but I wanted to thank all of the staff. I mean, I didn't know we owned our own bubble machine in the city of Walton. I saw our volunteer or our person of the year out there pushing the bubbles, Tom Steiger, and even the guys that set it all up. I said, how are you doing? This is so much work. And they're like, we love it. It's so rewarding. They fly as a kite, even though they had worked all day really hard on Saturday. So it's just such a great community event. And it was so nice to see everybody out. I just really wanted to thank everybody, and it was safe. And a couple got lost, but they got found, and the police were there, and EMS was there, and everybody was there. So it was really great. And I also wanted to mention that I'd done that ribbon cutting at the library, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Ice Age Flood, the Ice Age Foundation, the Tualatin Ice Age Foundations, with Jerry Ann's leadership and Scott Burns, who's the most enthusiastic geologist I think I've ever met, and others have done so much work. And we actually had a copy of the map. It's a national parks map, one and only national park stop in our city. And it's really cool, and it's brand new. So if you're at the library, make sure to pick up one of our national maps and check out where you can go to see the whole tour. And it's great that we have film that people can stop and see. The music's great, the book's great. I learned a lot. Everyone should go check it out. You can get it at the library. And I don't know how they have it organized, but it was the first time I've seen a movie in public for 2 years, I think. So because of COVID. And then I also wanted to let you know and mention in public, there's time for public comment on PAB decisions around the home grant with money. So take a look at the packet I sent. And then Councilor Grimes reminded me too with this project, this coming weekend, Saturday, if anyone, we have a community member, Doug Planbeck, that passed away during the height of COVID, and not of COVID, but during the height of COVID, and was very involved with SEPA and that organization. And development is going to be called Planbeck Gardens, and his memorial is this Saturday. If you're interested in more information about, I'll be there. Reach out to me, just send me an email to give you the information. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot all this, but they were really important.
All right. With that, do I have a motion to close the meeting tonight?
So
all in favor, just raise your hands. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you for hanging in there. Have a great day tomorrow.